It's time for Taking Care of Business on Midlands 103, with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Taking Care of Business. I'm Ronan Berry, this is Midlands 103, and coming up over the next hour, can regional Ireland really compete for investment? Well, Angela McEvoy, Director of Services at Laois County Council, will join me later to discuss the new Invest Laois campaign, the county's economic ambitions and why so many commuters want to work closer to home. Also, that bargain from overseas may not be quite the bargain you expected. I'll unpack the new customs rules and what they mean for your next online purchase with e-commerce expert Ronan O'Brien from Portlaoise later. But we'll look at that whole e-commerce sector, the movement of goods, and also have a little bit of a chat about the big suppliers. You know, those big name websites that come to mind when a lot of people go to buy something, be it for a party, a family occasion, you're packing your bags to go on summer holidays, you want to stock up on your wardrobe. Think of the websites you go to. We'll have a bit of a deep dive into those a little bit later on, at a time when the EU has also issued a warning around safety procedures and protocols around children's clothing. So a lot to unpack later on in the show. Ronan O'Brien is a phenomenal entrepreneur from Portlaoise. He's a former shortlisted person in the EY Entrepreneur of the Year Award too, and he knows a thing or two about e-commerce and has a number of successful e-commerce businesses behind him. That and a whole lot more coming up throughout the show. If you want to join this evening's conversation, as always, the quickest and easiest way to get me is by text or WhatsApp on 083 3010 103, powered by Lamb Brothers Toyota on the Arden Road in Tullamore, the home of Offaly's top-selling car brand. But to begin this evening, my next guest is someone many of you will know already from tuning into the show over the last couple of years. Jack Dunne is the CEO of Dimply.ai, the award-winning Irish fintech helping banks, insurers and wealth managers use AI to create more personalised, compliant digital experiences. Over the past couple of years, she's become one of Ireland's leading voices on AI, innovation and financial technology, and Dimply has recently been recognised in the AI FinTech 100 for the second consecutive year. But tonight, Jack is here to talk about something slightly different and much more personal. And if I throw you back to a month ago, she came on the eve of the Leaving Cert, and she gave some wonderful insights and anecdotes about the time she sat the Leaving Cert and about what it taught her in terms of coping strategies when the panic hits, when you sit in front of a paper on your favourite subject and all of a sudden you draw a blank. And she says she still uses those strategies to this day in a role with Dimply. But Jack is here this evening because her and her team have just launched something particularly special. It's called the Belong SRL, and it's a new initiative designed to encourage more young people, particularly girls and women, to explore careers in technology. And rather than simply talking about diversity, the programme aims to create real opportunities through schools, mentoring and leadership. It sounds amazing. Let's find out more. Good evening, Jack, and welcome back to Taking Care of Business.
Evening, Ronan. Thank you for having me.
Jack, if I know you, this one sounds very personal to you as well. What's the driving force and the key driver behind Belong SRL?
Yeah, absolutely, Ronan. Very personal indeed. So when my career started out, I was very fortunate. I had someone hold the ladder for me, and it really did make a difference. So it stayed with me all the way through my career. And really why Belong exists is around holding the ladder for somebody else, you know, where it matters, where they're climbing. So it's not me climbing or Dimply climbing, it's actually the individuals climbing. And as CEO here at Dimply, I actually get to build that into how Dimply operates. So we don't just talk about it. Prime example, I guess, for this is we've got a couple of students with us at the moment, Ethan Henry from Glenstall in Limerick and Ava Kelly from University of Limerick. They're really proof of this, of what makes it work. And, you know, we don't just talk about this. It's around how people can show up early and often, and really, most importantly, is how they belong.
So tell us exactly what Belong SRL is.
Yeah, sure. So Belong SRL is, the SRL starts for, the acronym SRL stands for Start, Rise and Lead. So really, where this all came from and the story really behind it is, you know, watching the gaps as I progressed through my career, and as we watch the gaps now as we're kind of hiring for Dimply, is talent isn't the problem. It's actually access to the talent is the problem, Ronan. So the reason we built these 3 doors, as I call them, each stage of these are, one is the school, so the primary school, so from maybe transition year onwards, like summer jobs, Third level, then that's the rise, and then the leadership is where we're opening up an opportunity for anybody who is really unsure, I guess, of what a day in the life of a CEO looks like, or the day in a life of leadership looks like, and get a sense of what that looks like in a tech company. So they're the three components of it, and they're kind of intertwined in a sense, because you could start in the START program, you could move to the rise and then move into leadership, but also they can work in isolation.
You mentioned there that it's not the talent that's the problem, it's access to it. And you're in a sector that has evolved rapidly over the years. You yourself, when you started out, probably fintech wasn't even a thing. It wasn't for any of us that long ago. So is this also reflective of a sector that's undergoing massive change?
Yeah, it truly is. And I think one of the real key premise behind this as well is, obviously we're all very familiar with AI, and it's become the centre topic for all of us in our home lives and in our work lives. A real challenge for students is, what is my career going to be? Is there going to be a job in the career I want because AI might take it over? And that's another reason why Belong SRL is up and running, is to allow people the opportunity to actually make an informed decision. So, for example, if you're in secondary school and you're about to embrace fifth year and you're picking your subjects, you get a sense, and if you are working with us for a period of time, what you like, what you don't like, what maybe subjects you need to pick. But likewise, the same if you're in university and college and you start your program, and then you've got to pick, which subjects when you get maybe to year 2 or 3. This helps make an informed decision of, okay, well, actually, I really like this component, or in fact, I don't like it. So it helps them make informed decisions around what maybe career or what academic pathway they may take.
Absolutely, because there's been a lot of talk, and just kind of picked up on it over the last week or two, even about the design of higher level, like third level courses now, particularly with the growth and the rise of AI, that there's calls now for some of them to be not 4 years, but be 2 years, but all enhanced and AI enabled. And it really shows how the landscape is changing out there too. That need though to get somebody immersed, or even get them to dip their toe in a sector, we really can't state how important that is, particularly at that early stage, as you say, that transition period in those early years in secondary school.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, Ronan, what we're seeing is the innovative ideas, the energy that these young students are bringing is absolutely incredible. So in fact, it brings this wonderful energy within the organisation that kind of makes you step back a little bit yourself and remember this is what it was like. So it actually helps the organisation as much as it helps the students. And that's what's really key in this. It isn't just about the students getting experience. It's actually the organisations are flourishing and expanding because of that energy that these individuals and the innovation they're bringing as well. Because remember, they are digital native. So they've grown up with nothing, only digital. So the aspects they bring around the table is also equally as important.
When you say that, do you mean in terms of maybe their approach to innovation, the thought process? What is it particularly that you think sets these young people aside? And not just the ones that are coming into Dimply, but in general, because so many people will say there is that energy, there's that curiosity, and there's something even more about it. I think it's because of that they're growing up with technology as just a norm in their lives. Yeah,
you've just nailed it, Ronan. It is the curiosity. It's absolutely curiosity, because there's also an element of there's no fear. There's no boundaries on we can explore. And we actually encourage that within Dimply, is allow people to be innovative, think outside the box, think bold, brave, and be big in terms of what it is we potentially could do. And the students that we've had exposure to, that's exactly what they're doing. But also, like one, Ava, who's working with us, she has had some really great ideas around some awards that we're going for. So she's working in kind of the marketing side of our business, and she's got some really different views, but exceptional views on how we should consider approaching some of these applications. So again, that's what I mean around there's no boundaries, and the curiosity is so brave and wonderful that they have this freedom of speech to be able to actually explore and rise and shine within the organisation, because likewise we allow that.
And it sounds like such a good match, because, and not just with Ava, but in general, the idea, because so often, like we've heard about in the early days, how we were going to work with millennials or how you'd work on Generation Z. And a lot of it was the engagement piece, hearing their voice and letting them know what they're doing. What's really jumping out is you're learning lots yourselves from them, because this is a generation that, yes, they're digital natives, but they'll grow up in a time when the pillar banks, the traditional banks, nearly aren't as much as a thing as they were certainly when I was growing up. So you actually need that insight in your company.
Absolutely do. No, we surely do. And that's what I mean. It is a two-way. It's very, and I'd say it's likely a 50-50, if I'm being very honest, because you also see the energy of the team, our existing team. They love that youth. You know what I mean? They love those younger people. And they, like, for example, we had Ethan came back from lunch one day last week, and he described where we went for lunch. And it's where none of us have gone for lunch, but yeah, he brought a whole different conversation in the office around where he went for lunch. And we ended up talking about, which I didn't even know even existed, was a location in New York called Buffalo. So the point being is he went for chicken wings for lunch, came back and talked about them. We were talking about the sauces, and then we ended up talking about this wonderful conversation around the size of Buffalo in New York. So my point being there is when you explore different things with these younger people, because they just bring that energy.
Absolutely. How does it work then? Say you're bringing people in at different levels. Kind of what's the time scale? What's the commitment from the younger people as well coming in? And I know that you're also looking at beyond students, but at women out there maybe who had a career in tech, maybe left, for rearing families, or maybe are in a role where they'd like to make that switch but don't know how to. Yeah,
absolutely. So the way it works for for secondary schools is summer jobs or when they're on midterm. So basically all for the summer. So Ethan's with us for the full summer. On the third level, we work around them as well. So Ava works 2 full days a week with us, and that works around her college. So sometimes it might be half a day one day and a full day the next, and a couple of hours. It depends really on her study schedule, but it is around working around their schedule as well. And then the other aspect of which is also the same, the middle one, the RISE, is really around supporting women in technology around two kind of critical moments. One, as we mentioned, the entering the industry at third level, and the other is where maybe some females stepped out for multiple reasons, and then getting back into the industry. That's part of the RISE as well. We absolutely want to be able to encourage those back into the industry and provide maybe flexibility around what would work for them in terms of whether it's a work-life balance, etc. So that's the other component of the female aspect on the RISE side.
And there has to be a huge untapped talent pool out there as well. How can people find out more, and can people lodge an expression of interest for it?
Absolutely. So we're going to be soon putting on our website for the lead one. So that'll be an application-based one. So we're going to take 2 cohorts of 6. It's open to all, but primarily females. But it is open to all. So the best candidates, and we'll pick from there. We'll pick 6 for 2 cohorts, and they will spend a day each with me and shadow me for a day. They'll have then a specific project to work on, unscripted, so they don't know this before they come and come and shadow me. And that afternoon, then they'll spend an afternoon pulling a project together. So it's our website, so dimply.ai, so www.dimply.ai, and also LinkedIn or my own LinkedIn. People can get in touch with us.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. And any of us that maybe have brought a young teenager to work for a few hours some morning, we're seeing that ourselves. Actually, there's a bit of an eye-opener in terms of the approach to technology and how things are done. And it brings that extra bit of energy and a bit of freshness in. So I think you're onto something big here again, Jack. Well done. It sounds amazing. And I look forward to learning more about it down the line. Thanks again, Jack.
Super. No problem. Thanks a million, Ronan.
And there you go. What a fantastic initiative there. Jack Dunne, the CEO of Dimply.ai. So it's Belong SRL, Start, Rise, Lead. What a way to get somebody immersed into the tech sector, the fintech sector, even just into the workplace, because we often hear that. It's very hard sometimes to teach people how to actually work when they get out of college or university or out of their apprenticeship. What a great way to do it. And Jack mentioned there too about people who might want remote or hybrid or flexible work options. Well, do you remember a couple of months back, I think it was around February, I spoke to Angela McEvoy from Laois County Council about a commuter survey that they were undertaking at the time. Well, the results are in, and it links nicely with a new initiative launched called Invest Laois. We'll find out all about that from Angela after this quick break.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
Laois is making a strong pitch to be Ireland's leading location for business investment through the the new Invest Laois campaign, the County Council is highlighting the county's strategic location, skilled workforce and quality of life to attract employers and create more local jobs. The campaign is backed by new research showing that thousands of people living in Laois are travelling long distances for work every day, with many saying that happily work closer to home, even if it meant earning less. Joining me now is Angela McEvoy, Director of Services for Planning, Regeneration and Economic Development at Laois County Council. Angela's going to take us through some of the results of the commuter survey that they carried out earlier this year. But I suppose, Angela, to begin, talk to us about Invest Laois. What's the campaign? How did it come about? And what are you trying to achieve with it?
Okay, good evening, Ronan. Nice to talk to you again on this show, and thanks for the opportunity to get in and talk to you on Invest Laois. I suppose it's kind of something that's been brewing for a while in Laois County Council, and this Invest Laois campaign. It's been called on by the elected members, by the Chamber, and by a number of kind of other kind of stakeholders as well, I suppose. But we were able to do it, I suppose, on foot of just transition funding from last year, where we would have gotten funding to complete out Junction 17. Some capital works out there in terms of investment and infrastructure and that, and it was, I suppose, kind of stemming from that then that we put forward kind of a marketing campaign for both there, the town of Portlaoise and the county as well in a broader sense. So that's really where it came from, and it really was all to do with kind of promoting the county as a destination to do business, to bring in kind of investment into the county, to locate, to point out the good things about Laois and, to point out the good things from a business person's perspective, I suppose, as well as to why they're doing business in Laois at the moment. So it was building on all of those things really, and it was informed completely by the commuter survey as well, just in terms of kind of the types of, findings that we got there, which we'll come to in a few minutes. But that's in essence, I suppose, really where Invest Laois and why it was in launch from. Again, as I said, supported by our local SPC in the council, which is made up of a number of stakeholders, and also by the Chamber of the Laois Chamber Alliance, our former Chamber of Commerce. So that's it.
So when you create, say, a new brand like Invest Laois, there's a big marketing campaign behind it. We see the signage, we see the posters as well. How does that trickle down then, and how does it manifest itself as like a little mini organisation or its own working group in order to deliver on the outcomes that you're hoping to achieve with it?
Yeah, so the working group essentially was made up, I suppose, of the business support unit in the council, led by myself, and our communications officer as well played a big part in this. And then externally, Laois Chamber Alliance, which I sit on myself, and kind of that really would have informed, I suppose, kind of the dynamic that we were trying to kind of promote. I suppose going forward now, we look at maybe establishing an Invest Laois website, or not website, but a kind of a forum there to kind of drive on now kind of with this campaign and kind of, I suppose, have, in essence, more kind of collaboration with external stakeholders like the IDA, Enterprise Ireland, and even the infrastructure providers as well, such as ESB, Ishka, and all of those bodies that have a lot to kind of, I suppose, play with as well in this, and have a big undertaking within the county to drive and promote investment and economic development.
And often when people hear of a campaign like Invest Laois, and we've seen similar things attempted in other counties over the years too, sometimes the focus or the thoughts automatically go to multinational companies. This though is a wider thing, I believe, because in fairness to you in Laois, you've had a lot of success as well with indigenous companies really establishing new or bigger bases, particularly in the business parks around Portlaoise there.
Absolutely, Ronan. I suppose one of the things that maybe we were a little disappointed with over the years is the lack of foreign direct investment in the county. That said, we have 2 or 3 good companies there providing, good jobs in the county. And I suppose under the stewardship of Mr. John Mulholland, the previous CEO, we would have invested heavily in Junction 17 and, promoted sites there for development. And we have some very good locally grown businesses located there. And in other business parks, across the county as well. In Portarlington, obviously, we have the Portarlington Enterprise Park, which has a lot of good businesses working away there as well. So, yes, for sure, we have been trying to grow that indigenous, I suppose, investment, for want of a better word, and kind of support and allow businesses to develop within the county and expand within the county. So we're very anxious to continue in that kind of trend as well. So we are That said, we wouldn't welcome with open arms foreign direct investment coming into the county as well. And we are very conscious that the IDA has a substantial land bank and land holding there just off Junction 18 and again accessible from Junction 17 and the National Enterprise Park. So, I suppose all of those kind of pieces are very much, important in driving this agenda,
We often might talk about the county's strategic location as a particular advantage, and everybody can see that. You look at a map, and most people crossing the country have travelled through Laois at some stage. But beyond that, we talk about skilled workforces and the quality of life and the exact nature of the people who are living in the county and particularly those who are working outside the county. And this is where this key piece of research that we just mentioned came into play, because you spoke to me, I think it was back in February or March, about the Laois commuter survey. You had over 1,650 responses, I believe, to it. What were some of the key things that you learned from that?
Yeah, it was a great survey to have undertaken, really. And I know the figures might seem small in the scheme of things, but it is hard to get, I suppose, full kind of engagement on these type of surveys. That said, 1,650 was a very, very good response rate. I suppose some of the top line things were, I suppose, that 81% of people commuters want to work close to home. And look, I suppose that's one of the things that we don't take for granted, 68% hold third level degrees. And I suppose that's kind of something that we would have been aware of, that we have a very good rich talent pool. Unfortunately, they're leaving the county on a daily basis. 61% would be willing to change jobs. And that's a high figure, in terms of people that would be willing to come back and work in the county if they got the right, I suppose, gig, so to speak. And then 36% of those said that they would take a pay cut, so there's some of the kind of high level ones, I suppose. The other thing we were keen to look at in that survey was to see the range of skills that were leaving the county, where were people working when they left. And to most of, I suppose, there was the variety really of kind of professional sectors and specific skills, and they included finance and corporate services, technology, IT infrastructure, so software engineers, cybersecurity, system analysis, data analytics, all of those kind of things, which I suppose, given your previous conversation on the radio here this evening, that's kind of all playing to that. Engineering and advanced construction, we can see that on a daily basis where a lot of people are going, for bigger, larger projects that are happening outside of the county. And then healthcare and life sciences, again, specialised nursing, pharmaceutical manufacturing, commerce and trade, logistics management, and that's one of the key things. And I know you're going to speak about e-commerce coming up shortly as well. So they're the kind of skills that we're losing out of the county. We know we have a talent pool here of those skills and people working in those areas. So I suppose, it's to try and get businesses to come into that aligned with those skills and locate in the county. And look, if we have the people here willing to work in those areas, it should be a very big attractor to businesses coming in,
That sounds like extremely useful data to have your hands on and at least know what the talent pool is. And it's really fascinating to hear you list those kind of trades and professions off. Yeah. It's probably different than people, if you were asked to pick, you probably would have picked different skill sets. But again, it goes to show you. And I think that's reflected in a lot of towns around the Midlands. There's people working in roles in large companies outside of the area in very significant, very high skilled, very senior roles. And if you could just start tapping into them and bringing some of them back, because this all, I guess, ultimately has to help inform the development plan for the county in terms of housing, infrastructure and all that type of stuff. So how will this survey be used to maybe look at what you're doing there in County Laois, or will you do follow-ups as well to dig a bit deeper or target other sections of the skills that are out there?
Absolutely. Like, one of the things, I suppose, our economic vision really for the county is to ensure, that we are a sustainable location that can capitalise on our location that you previously mentioned, but also on the skills that are within the county as, somewhere that people and businesses will pick as a destination to grow their businesses. And that's very much aligned in our county development plan. It's in our local economic and community plan. And I suppose it's very aligned with the Midland Regional Enterprise Plan and the regional spatial and economic strategy as well. Both of those are our guiding kind of documents for when we are writing local policy, So we are very keen, I suppose, to bring back those kind of skills to further grow kind of, that talent pool to make sure that we have businesses here to be able to grow it. I suppose within our Midland Regional Enterprise Plan, and having just come from working kind of on the Just Transition piece there, where we had a project that was very much focused on progress, pathways to progress, looking at kind of areas to focus on, ICT, food and drink, manufacturing. They were all kind of action area plans that we wanted to look at a region, but they're also very relevant in the context of our own county, and we do wear our own county colours on our back as well, so we are very much focused on trying to grow those,
Absolutely. Well, it's a fantastic starting point, and congrats and well done to all involved to get it off the ground, and undoubtedly plenty of good news to come as well. And who knows, in a year's time we could be sitting back doing a review and looking at some major successes. But I think the fact it's data driven too, and you're really looking at learning who and what you have in the county and how to develop from there is a credit to you all. Thanks a million, Angela. We'll talk to you again soon.
Not at all, Ronan, and thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Not at all, an absolute pleasure. That's Angela McEvoy, Director of Services at Laois County Council. So nothing like seizing the initiative and getting up and doing it. And I know that commuter survey really has thrown up some really useful and valuable data there. It'd be lovely to see it replicated in other counties around the Midlands. There's a little thing for you to do if you're listening and you're in a position where you can make that happen. Just want to bring to your attention, Leo Westmead, the local enterprise office, are hosting a series of free daytime webinars throughout July and August designed to support businesses to grow, improve efficiency and build confidence. These engaging bite-sized sessions cover practical topics such as using AI to boost profits, carrying out effective market research and improving productivity. And they're all delivered in a clear, practical way with actionable takeaways in just 1 hour. Some of the titles are 10 practical AI tools to save time, Master Your Time, Master Your Work, the Small Business AI Starter Kit, that'll be in mid-August, and what expenses I can deduct for income or corporation tax, that's coming up on August the 31st. But kicking off on July the 15th, recruitment support for employers, and that'll be delivered by the Department of Social Protection. So they're hour-long daytime webinars. If you go onto the Westmead Local Enterprise Office website, you'll find the booking details there. It's free to book, but places will be limited, so get your booking in quick. Now, time for a quick break. After that, if you're somebody who likes to buy goods from overseas, outside the EU in particular, and you've probably noticed the €3 tax that goes on every item you're bringing in since the 1st of July, what impact will it have on Irish business, on local business? What impact might it already be having on consumer habits? And what should we all be looking out for when it comes to safety with goods from overseas as well? Well, after break, I'll be joined by Ronan O'Brien from Satori Results, an absolute expert in the e-commerce space.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
If you've been shopping online from outside the EU recently, you've surely noticed the new customs charge that's come into force on low value imports since the 1st of this month. For many consumers, it's another unwelcome cost at a time when household budgets are already under pressure. But supporters of the move argue it's about creating a fairer marketplace for Irish and European businesses that have long competed against overseas retailers operating under different rules. Joining me now is Ronan O'Brien, founder of Satori Results in Portlaoise, one of Ireland's leading e-commerce businesses, to explain what the changes really mean and why he believes they're about much more than simply collecting another tax. Good evening, Ronan, and welcome back to Taking Care of Business.
Good evening, how are you?
I am fantastic. Ronan, do you think most customers or consumers, when they heard of this coming in, they went, oh, not another tax? And what's the reaction been, do you think, with people so far?
I think that's it. It's just, the initial reaction is another drain on your wallet that isn't going to result in anything positive for them in the short term. And with any change, it's usually a bit of a shock when they first hear it, and then they realise how it affects them. And so far, customers, in fairness, have said, look, it's more money going out of my wallet, therefore unhappy. And that's completely reasonable. And, it was always a crazy rule that foreign businesses got a leg up against Irish businesses from the EU. That's what it was. It's not a new tax. It's a tax that the smaller orders under €150 didn't have to pay. But if an Irish business was buying these items in, they did have to pay import duties.
So it was almost a double whammy for businesses like yours, and we'll go through some of those now in a minute. Already, is it too early from a data perspective, but or can you sense a shift in consumer attitude and approach already? I know it's only about a week in operation at this point.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd say a double whammy. It's not going to make a huge difference to my businesses, to be honest with you. I mean, the number one thing all Irish businesses want is more disposable money in people's pockets that they can go out and spend and that they can fight for. This levels the playing field slightly. It's still more in favour of the others. And the consumers really need to be kind of taught. I suppose it didn't come out with much news beforehand, but the reasons why they're doing it, I mean, if we look at, it was May this year that there was a €200 million fine on Temu from the European Central thing, and they did it for a reason. Like the situation there is they tested, products like toys from Temu and Shine, and 65% of all products from Temu didn't pass the EU safety standards. 73% of Shine products failed. When we look at toy category specifically, I've got the costumeshop.ie, and that falls into clothing and toys. And 26 out of 27 Temu toys failed, and all 27 Shine toys that were tested failed. And what that means is customers are, in good faith placing an order for their children, and they're bringing along something that doesn't meet the safety standards of the EU. It doesn't meet the safety standards that Irish businesses have to meet. And if you said to a parent, would you want something that wasn't safe in the hands of your child, maybe even in the mouth of a young child? The obvious answer is no. But they didn't know that, these items were getting past customs without the checks because they weren't paying the taxes.
And I think anyone listening, people will probably know family members, and say if there was a certain event on TV towards the end of November, early December, and people go out buying special pyjamas, and a lot of it maybe is coming from overseas. But things like children's clothes that are highly flammable has become a huge issue, and that was part of that fine, I believe, that Temu were given in May.
It was indeed, and it's specific. I mean, again, not to plug my own business, but the costumeshop.ie sells costumes, and people go around bonfires at Halloween, and we're really disgusted to see not just that they're flammable, but these things, if a spark lands off a bonfire or a barbecue, they really, your child will go up in flames. And that's why we spend so much money doing safety standards and making sure that we've got all the right certifications, but beyond that they're the right thing for customers to wear. And so, this is why we want children to be safe. This is why, generally speaking, the safety standards are what everybody does want. But then it comes back into the consumer saying, well, look, do I want to pay for it? And what's the right thing to do? So I would say that you can now pay an extra €3 and still break the safety standards in reality. But this is saying, look, because these other businesses are going through this cost, we're going to try to slightly even the playing field. That's really what they're after. And, the other thing I've always thought was absolutely wild is if I want to send my next door neighbour a postcard, it's going to cost a lot more than sending a package from China to Ireland. And that just seems like such an incredibly expensive juxtaposition that it goes that far for so much cheaper than delivering something to your next door neighbour via the same postal system and the same roads that our taxes go towards helping out.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the key things about this new customs charge too. It's €3 per different item in a package as well. It's not just the one €3 cost. So you could imagine it will deter people, particularly when people are ultimately looking for value too. But you mentioned it won't make a huge difference to your business. I'm sure from a purchasing perspective, is it going to drive more business though then? Because will people suddenly twig and go, if I shop more local or at least within Ireland, I can actually save on those charges and ultimately get a better product?
Absolutely. Certainly people should be looking more to buy off Irish businesses, and what they have to notice as well, just because it says a .ie at the end of the domain, it doesn't mean they're not shipping from the UK, and that's where a lot of surprises are coming from. And again, it's the uncertainty that people hate. I'll just jump back a little bit there where you said it's a €3 charge. It's not just a €3 charge per line item or per product. It's $6.95 for An Post to process the paperwork. So if you buy a €10 item, you're going to be paying the guts of €20 to get it into your hands. And I think that's the real big shock and the real big headline. It's not just the €3, it's the processing charges, which could be $6.50 or $6.95 if it's An Post. Again, these are processing charges that Irish businesses have always paid. So we pay €15 for processing charges as a business to get a box in. But obviously this had fallen under the threshold before, and that threshold has been removed. But from a consumer's point of view, if they used to pay €10 for something and now they pay €20 for it, or almost €20 for it, that's just a big shock. And most of the time, the first time people are hearing about it, is when they spend their €10 and they're told, look, it's an extra €10 if you want to actually have it. And that's where the shock and the real anger comes from, because, you know, we'd like to see this ring fenced for the customers so the people got the money back in their pocket, or supporting Irish business to make them more competitive. But that's not what's happening. This seems to just go into another black hole where the customers say it's an extra 10 quid out of my pocket, and they don't see any benefit for it.
It's an area, though, you've been heavily involved in for many years now, and you're well known for, you mentioned the likes of the costumeshop.ie already, your own business as well, Zatori Results. You do professional fulfilment services for business. Again, that's a sector, is it, that has a huge overhaul in the last 5 or 10 years, particularly with the onslaught of development of tech, I'd imagine.
Absolutely, and it's changing every day, and with AI at the moment, you know, I've never seen a business as changing and as fast-paced as possible. It's never been more difficult to run a business, to be honest with you. I think Pat McDunne was in the papers recently saying if he had to go back over, he wouldn't start a business in Ireland, despite how successful he's been with Supermax and all the hotels and all the service stations. I mean, the amount of people who rely on him to get their petrol or to get their hotel beds or to get their Supermax every day, it is getting more and more difficult for Irish businesses. It is a small nation, and we have to kind of remember that an Irish business really is the number one employer of Irish people. You know, there is multinationals coming in, but the small, you know, SME is the one that's really hiring the majority of people. And we have to support those in a way. So having an unfair rule, I mean, in the past I've shut down businesses because I could see coming down the line, for example, I was heavily involved in designer clothing for a while, and I could see coming down the line this fast fashion, this shine and stuff, that there was just no way we could pay taxes and compete with people that had all the advantages, the very low wage costs, the very low import costs, and we were getting, you know, put up with all the extra charges. So this goes a long way to saying, look, guys, think about what you're doing, think about the safety standards. But that doesn't mean customers want it. I mean, customers really do have to think to themselves, in this cost of living crisis, what can I do to get the best results? I suppose the one change and shift will be people saying, well, the best results for them probably now are ordering items from an Irish business, or at the very least considering, do they want to import them outside of the EU, or do they want to work with an Irish business? We've always been able to compete, even despite the unfair advantage. But I think, you know, nowadays people will be thinking, all right, let's think about what's going to cost the least. And if it's small items, you know, costumes, etc., they will be going Irish where they may have been going abroad.
And do you think for maybe other people in a similar space that you're in, would they have been maybe content to take a slightly higher price, knowing that they've got good goods, and sort of let a lot of consumers, if they want to buy cheap goods from outside the EU, let them away with that and off you go? I want to work on the customer segment, the portion of market I have. Will those businesses now be looking, going, right, I need to kind of up my game. There's a potential for me to do an awful lot better with these new custom charges coming in?
I think what this might do is increase demand, and where there's demand, supply will go to meet it. So I think, yes, certainly if people are sending higher volumes, they can drop their prices in results of that. So we can work with the consumers once they are sending, you know, volumes their way and buying Irish. So I think some businesses will do very well out of it. This will absolutely kill other businesses that are doing just-in-time drop shipping, etc. Will just won't happen anymore. So overnight, there's going to be people losing their jobs, and we can't stress enough that that's not what people want. Other businesses like mine that, you know, manufacture and hold you know, product physically in Ireland for fast next day delivery. But customers really need to try to understand, well, how do they know if it says .ie? How do they find out if the products are shipping from, you know, the UK, or are they shipping from outside of Europe altogether? How exactly do they know? And sometimes the winner in all these things will be Amazon, etc. again, because they'll find a way not to have the $6.95 charge that An Post are putting in. So they'll do their own things. And that's not a good result for Ireland Inc. You know, Ireland Inc. really needs to be focused on what we can do to create jobs, to create better service, and also to be the best price, because the customers fundamentally, they want the best product at the best price. They want the safety regulations. Up to now, they kind of assumed that they had them. And again, nobody will put a toy into the hands of a child knowing that it doesn't pass safety regulations. But there was just an assumption there, and there was no, you know, certainly Temu, etc., weren't bragging about the fact that they were skipping all these regulations. So, you know, I think it's a good thing. It's certainly a good thing from the business point of view. I think it's a bad thing from the consumer's point of view, because when you're really short on money in your pocket, and there is such a credit crunch at the moment, that's tough. And it's going to be something that hopefully after a little while will settle down the uncertainty at least, so they know in advance. But when you order an item and you think you're ordering from Ireland because it's a .ie domain, and you get handed an extra 10 or 20 or 30 euro bill just for this new tax, there's no other natural reaction than to be angry.
Absolutely. And I think it happens with so many things. Maybe you order something from a shop that's based in Ireland and there's a €7 or €8 delivery charge on it, and you're kind of going, even for click and collect, and you're like, well, I have no choice but to press it. And in some ways, it can often seem like a tax. So I think if people get hit with that shock, it'll certainly make them sit up and think. But it's an interesting space. It'll be really interesting to see where it leads, and does it change consumer habits over the next couple of months, and where it goes from there.
Certainly will.
But you'll undoubtedly be there anyway, Ronan, at the forefront of it as always.
We'll be there, and I'm sure we'll be bringing more lines to make the best of a good situation from that point of view, but also to look after the Irish customers, because some other businesses will just switch off. And I suppose the message for our customers is look on the websites if you're ordering online and find out where do they ship from. Just because they have stores in Ireland, physical stores, or just because it says .ie, those two indicators do not mean that they don't ship from a fulfillment centre in the UK and that you're going to get caught for this. So just be extra cautious to remove that uncertainty. And hopefully this will be something that creates jobs for Irish people, and as a result, can be a good thing for both business and consumers alike. It will just take a while to settle down.
Absolutely no, but look at positive results from it all, hopefully long term. Ronan, a pleasure as always. Keep up the super work, and we'll catch up again soon.
Chat to you soon.
That's Ronan O'Brien there from Zatori Results. But Ronan kind of name checks some of the businesses he operates, the costumeshop.ie, the mobilityshop.ie. Plenty on the go with Ronan anytime, and really at that forefront of e-commerce and fulfilment and everything else in between. There you go. You've probably noticed that extra, not just €3, but up to maybe €10 by the time all the processing fees are applied. Let me know if you have 083 30 10 103. What's the worst one you've been hit with so far? I'll be back in just a couple of moments.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
I'm always interested in where tomorrow's workforce is coming from, and there's no doubt that TUS has become a major part of that story. Its founding president, Professor Vincent Cunnan, has announced he'll retire at the end of January next year, bringing to a close a remarkable chapter for the university. During a recent interview with my colleague Sally Ann Barrett, he reflected on why TUS has earned the title of producing Ireland's most employable graduates for 3 years running, how closely it works with industry, and why AI is now becoming an essential skill for every graduate. Here's Professor Cunnan speaking to Sally Ann on Saturday Focus last weekend.
For the third year in a row, TUS has the most employable graduates in the country. Now, that is quite an accolade. That doesn't happen just by chance. I thought the first year it might have been by chance. On the second year, thinking, we might be onto something here. And by the third year, we're in a position to really celebrate.
You're believing it now.
I'm believing it myself, I'm believing it myself. And why is that? It's because our programs are co-designed with industry, because we have industry on our program review boards. We have feedback loops back into the industry that we're serving. And when I talk about industry, I mean business, culture, arts, design, whatever it is, but a general term of industry. So we have those feedback. So when I say that we produce industry-ready graduates, well, I can stand over that statement because we have the most employable in the country. But they are coming out prepared. And of course, we're dealing now with, or trying to deal with, the new AI revolution, and we have to make sure our graduates are fit for purpose. Again, we're always looking at that fit for purpose. So now we are, after the first phase of AI, which was about disruption to our assessment process, etc., we are now incorporating AI into our modules, into our programs, because when people say a lot of graduate jobs won't exist into the future, and I don't hold with that. But what will certainly be true is graduates who have no idea about AI, they're not going to get jobs. So our graduates will have the necessary hard skills, if you like, the soft skills, which is about critical thinking, communication, it's about working in groups. They'll have all that soft skill, but they'll also have the AI and digitalization skills. That's what we will ensure all of our graduates have, and that will make them, I believe that they can still continue to exist in a world that's changing rapidly.
Well, AI can't teach you emotions and feelings, and it sounds like pride is the main one that you have as you leave here. Is that fair to say you're proud of what you leave behind now?
Well, I suppose I'm not a person who has reflected. I mean, my trajectory has always been what's next, you know. I suppose, you know, maybe I might sum it up. If you're successful, life is a series of anticlimaxes, because yes, of course you achieved that, but it's not about looking back and thinking, weren't we great, didn't we do that? It's about, what are we doing now? So my career has been driven by what's next. How do we improve? How do we make a difference? And I think, so the time for reflection, maybe if you come to me in a year's time, I may look back and think but with immense pride, most likely. But at the same time, yes, I made an announcement, spoke to the staff, and I said, "That's it, lads," because I'm committed until the 31st of January of next year. So I've already forgotten about that. There's lots to be done between there now and then, and I'll continue just to do the job that I'm privileged to do. So I'm very proud to be the president of TUS. Very proud of all the staff and the students of this organisation, and to be really at the centre of a region like the Midlands and indeed the Midwest. I think it's a very privileged position to be in, but it's one that we've earned. It's one that wasn't bestowed upon us. We earned that position, and we intend to keep there.
That's the voice of Vincent Conan, the president of TUS there, who's due to retire at the end of January. And what a lovely way to close it, because it links really what we've spoken about in the show this evening about a lady from Portarlington who's the CEO of a fintech company who's now launched Belong SRL to encourage younger people and women into fintech and technology. Angela McEvoy from Laois County Council talking about Invest Laois, the new initiative backed up by the Laois Commuter Survey. And Ronan O'Brien there speaking about that new customs charge that ultimately could drive innovation and jobs around the Midlands. I keep saying it, it's a great region. Let's keep her lit.
Taking Care of Business returns next Tuesday at 7 p.m. with the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.